So hi, my name is Eranki, and I am the CEO and founder of Salesa. Now in this video, I wanted to talk about the mistakes I've made while building Salesa so far. So yeah, the one important thing when you're building a tech startup is you need to have the product and you also need to have the customer base. And the old school approach, the traditional approach which is decades old, is that you build one and you do the other next. You build your product first and then you go after the customer base and you try to sell the product. Now, in recent times, we had these things called, the lean cycles and agile cycles, where you don't necessarily do the same thing. You don't risk investing in stuff without actually seeing if it's worthy to invest in or not. So let's say you want to build a product. So the old school approach would be you build a product and then you go out and you sell it. And if the customer likes it, they like it. If not, your product is useless right now. The approach that has been adopted in the more recent years is to, you know, start building your product, and as you build it, expose the product in its infancy to the market. Find out what the customers feel about that, find out what users people feel about that, and then based on the what you understand from showing your product to other people, you adapt, you change your product, and you move along with it. By the time your product is ready, it's already gained sufficient exposure to be sold and marketed with relative ease. Now, with Salesa, that's the one thing I did not do. And I have a pretty solid reason for I did not do that, because when I was building Salesa, I wasn't even sure if such a product could be built. There was a lot of innovation going on, and that innovation was very conditional on my assumptions. And I wasn't sure if I could innovate, I could build, I could produce the technology I wanted to produce. And I thought, what's the point? I could market it, I could sell it. But if I can't build it, none of that would make any sense. Because the technology is something that I was yet to prove could be built. So I focused my entire time building Salesa. I spent 15 hours a day without taking weekends off for I don't know how long. And by the time it was done, it exceeded my original expectations, but it also fell short of the new expectations that I had. Then it was time to sell it. Then it was time to market the product and sell the product. There's billions of ways you could try to market and sell your product. But what happens is you've been on sort of a ride for so long that the moment it stops, it's kind of jarring for you. It's like a roller coaster you've been on and suddenly it's stopped. What do? You're not sure, you're confused. And because of that confusion and because of not being sure, you waste valuable time. So here's the mistake I made, and that it was that I did not try to gain exposure as I built the product. A mistake I didn't make with my second business named Ethnica. So when Ethnica is still out, it's still being worked on as I speak. And with Ethnica, I made sure that I did both the product development as well as the sales and marketing in parallel, which is something that you should do. But then I have this sort of an approach, right? You worry about the problems you need to worry about today and leave the problems that will come tomorrow to your future self. And that's worked out pretty well. Even now, I have no doubt that I can actually sell sales and market it. Of course, yeah, it's jarring when I stopped development and shifted to sales and marketing, because instead of it being a smooth transition, those are very sudden, very uh, sharp transition. That said, there's nothing stopping me. But I thought, fine, there's nothing stopping you. But I thought, even if nothing's stopping you, you should acknowledge the mistakes you made so that you can, improve off of it. And perhaps if someone else is watching this, maybe be a warning to them to not make the same mistake. Now, this isn't a mistake that cannot be corrected, but it is a mistake because now we have to acknowledge that mistake, take the consequences into consideration, understand where we are right now, because we need to reevaluate our position because we haven't done that, because we haven't been able to understand the mistakes that we made so far, are made so far. And now it's very important that we understand that, okay, we've got the product. We don't know if it's going to fit the market. We don't know if we are going to be able to sell it and market it easily. But what we do know is that it is a product made with a lot of care, a lot of thought, and designed to basically benefit our customers. So moving forward, we have to set our priorities straight, and that our priorities are very simple. Now we don't have any sort of an exposure in the market. People don't know our product. People don't know who we are, and that is the challenge we have to solve right now. Before we even think about conversion rates, before we even think about um, optimization in terms of the operations before we even think about expanding, growing, any of that, the first thing we need to think about is getting leads to our product, getting people to our website to look at our product, and doing so in a scalable manner. Now, the first thing I did as soon as I launched was I went on a couple of social media platforms, the ones I was comfortable with, not the ones I should be on, which is another mistake I made. Because you see, if you do the things you are comfortable doing, if you do the things you have the skill to do, you are only going to get the same results. What you have to do is do what needs to be done instead of what you can or what you want to do. Now, Salesa is a B2B, and that means Salesa is a business that serves other businesses. And that means the traditional marketing strategies of B2C companies. So B2C companies, businesses that serve end consumers, everyday people. A B2B cannot use the strategies a B2C uses. And the social media platforms also differ. So Instagram, as far as I know, is pretty useless to a B2B company like mine. But it is very, very, very important to a B2C company. And you know what I did? I went on Instagram and cold called a couple of people, or cold messaged a couple of people, more than a couple, but still, asking them if they would be interested in my product. No pitch, no systematic way of doing things, and obviously I didn't get any results I wanted. It was horrible. And you know what the mistake was? The mistake wasn't that I was not getting results. The reason it was horrible was that I knew the moment I started and when I ended my foray into Instagram for sales that was not the place to be. That was not the place I had to be. Sure, maybe I could get a couple of customers after targeting thousands of people, but honestly, randomly messaging thousands of people and hoping that one of them would be the fit the profile of my customer, that is the stupidest approach I could think of. So I decided not to do it. LinkedIn is a good place to get B2B leads, but again, I've been stalling it. But this time I've not been stalling it because of fear or anything such. When I this foray into Instagram for the B2B sales produced an unexpected results. Sure, it failed. It wasn't the place I had to be, but it showed a fatal weakness in what I had to do. It was this: we at Salesa do not have a structure where we can systematically target leads, systematically generate leads, qualify them, convert them. We were doing them in a haphazard manner. And why were we doing it in a haphazard manner? Because while we were developing the product, we had sufficient time to understand the processes involved and make it a very systematic way of developing things, finding key areas, finding issues, and fixing them. And had we started with our sales and marketing while we were developing our product, we would have gotten into the rhythm of things. We would have known how to set up that system around us, how we could create the sort of support structure we need to do this systematically. We couldn't do that because we were just trying it now. And from being a team that does things very systematically, in a very disciplined fashion, where everything is done with so much care and attention to detail, where action take there's so much action to suddenly end up in this vast ocean in the middle of nowhere, not having a systematic way of doing things, not understanding the discipline involved in this part of the business, not being able to take as much action as we would otherwise. That proved an uncomfortable experience. So here's what we did. We started building ourselves a support structure, tools that could help us analyze our strategies, our approach. We're still adding some finishing touches to those tools where we can now understand if what we are doing is paying dividends, which approach suits us, which approach does not suit us. Because the first thing is, when you want to do an experiment, what you need is not the um, mice to experiment on. What you need is a scale to experiment with. If you want to measure how tall I am, before you even call me to measure how tall I am, you need to have the scale ready. So before we even get started with our campaigns, and before we even understand what works and what does not work, before we put in effort and time, we should be able to understand whether the effort, time, and money that we're putting into our marketing and sales campaigns is actually paying us dividends. So in the next few days, we'll be working out. We'll be finishing up basically our support structure and understanding how we can move forward with marketing and sales. Then I'll be making a video about what sorts of tools we build and how we track our campaigns, one video, so that you can understand how you can sort of build those tools to understand if your own sales and marketing campaigns or your own lead generation is working or not. And post that, we will also be going into detail on the strategies we've come up with, what we intend to do, what we expect to see from them. And then as we implement them, we'll be using our tools to understand if it's working or not. And if it's not working, or if it is working, we'll go into the root cause analysis of the why it is working or not working. And I'll be making sure to make videos on that as well and giving you updates. I want to help out these small and medium businesses, the everyday people, to run their businesses as smoothly and as well as they can. So while the AI part of our products is intended to address the same issue, tech in itself is not sufficient. You also need the proper knowledge framework. You also need the proper ideas. You need to have the proper experience. And that is what I seek to provide to you through these videos, because you don't have to do it yourself, but by watching me or the people do it, and do it well or do it not so well, you will be gaining some necessary experience without actually having any skin in the game. And that's good, because you don't have to take the risks to get the same results, because someone else is already taking the risk, and that someone is me, by the way, but I'm already taking the risk. So why do you also have to take the same risk to get the same conclusions as me? Watch me. And I don't mean watch me in the sense that I will tell you what to do. No, I'm saying watch me the way you watch a mouse in a laboratory. See what is working for me, see what's not working for me. And based on that, build your own inference, if you will. Build your own inference, build your own understanding of things. Move on from there and make sure your business is a good one. Eranki out.